Right, most South Africans celebrated the Nelson Mandela Day by giving back to communities. But for two of the civil society formations, the day was spent discussing the state of the nation. The Ahmed Kathrada Foundation hosted its gathering at Lillies Leaf farm, while Save South Africa held its discussions at Rhema Church. Both conferences were held at different venues in Johannesburg. But just to talk to us about this, we joined from our studios in Mahikeng by a political analyst, Lukhona Mnguni. Lukhona, good morning to you and thank you so much for coming through.
Good morning and good morning to your viewers.
Thank you so much. There we are. We have it all up and running now. Now, let's look at these two gatherings that took place yesterday. For both gatherings, it wasn't really a first gathering. For both organizations, it wasn't the first gathering. Is there a strategic significance for these meetings to have taken place on Mandela Day?
Well, I mean, these are ongoing conversations by civil society. They are trying to capture certain moments within the life of the country, and Mandela Day is one of those important days in the calendar of South Africans. So civil society definitely wants to be heard and be seen as taking a standpoint in arresting what some have called a moral drift in our society. So the strategic part is really gathering around the Nelson Mandela Day, the person of Nelson Mandela, evoking what Mandela stood for and trying to send a message that South Africa has departed from this vision of Nelson Mandela over the last 5 to 10 years. That's the significance. But what is going to count most, as you have already indicated, that civil society was gathering in two different venues. There's what we often call competition within civil society. And I'm still looking at checking as to where is the center of this dialogue going to be. Are they going to find convergence in terms of diagnosis of what is wrong in South Africa, as well as the remedy that is necessary? Because the actual remedy must come from within the political sphere. And now that is to say, do you either support a political entity that is in existence in South Africa, or do you mobilize people to vote for a new vehicle that will be formed as a process of these civil society engagements? That's where the real issue is going to confront these civil society engagements. We might be in agreement as to what is wrong in the country and as so far as it implicates the president and the African National Congress. But the question is, what type of government do we deserve and who should constitute that type of government? Now, that will be the much more difficult conversation for these organizations.
And I think one major question, Lukhona, is the decisiveness from the government's part. Are they really doing anything about this? Such meetings we've seen before from the stalwarts. There have been marches, and we've also seen the leaked emails continuing to come out every week. So is government really being decisive on these matters?
Well, I mean, governance is a big deal and an important part of these conversations. But there's only so much you can do when you are part of civil society. You can advocate, you can petition, you can try your level best to make sure that you keep the issues live and alive in the media. You can even conduct what we probably would call social audits. If you look at the outer report table to Parliament, to the Hawks and the Public Protector's Office, these are attempts to try and really be part and parcel of the solution of misgovernance. But the reality is that if your law enforcement agencies are not acting swiftly and enough, you mentioned the issue of the emails, for example. That indicates to me a lack of acting swiftly and enough from law enforcement agencies. Because we can't all sit paralyzed and say we are waiting for some elusive commission of inquiry that we do not know when it is going to come. But until it comes, then nothing must be done about the emails. Yet from some of these leaked emails, we probably have what some may call prima facie evidence that serious wrongdoing has been done, and in actual fact some people can start being prosecuted. Now, once you say you are waiting for a commission of inquiry, whose, if taking effect, relies in the political sphere by virtue of the fact that it is the president who appoints commissions of inquiry, then you sort of enjoy political immunity if you are implicated in these emails, as long as the president does not appoint that commission of inquiry. Yeah. So there is a conversation that we need to have as to how does society press on law enforcers to actually start acting on some of the information that has come out of these leaked emails.
Yeah, and we've had, of course, many people coming out to say that the sooner the president establishes that commission of inquiry, the better. We've also had Ruth Meyer yesterday, sharing the same sentiments, but basically saying that the commission should be established immediately, but through the Chief Justice.
Well, I mean, if Ruth Meyer believes that the commission must be appointed through the Chief Justice, he must also actually respect the fact that the president can take on judicial review a public protector report. I do suppose that our impatience must not lead us to a point where we subvert and undermine the processes of the law and the remedies that are actually given to people, such as the president who holds that public protector report currently. Now, he can review it. He is reviewing it. I think we need to be patient enough and wait for that process to come, because indeed there is seemingly a debate in law as to how do we deal with the conflict of interest that confronts the president. Yeah. While constitutionally he is mandated with the duty of appointing commissions of inquiry and appointing those judges, it seems as if the public protector remedial action that was saying the Chief Justice selects a judge and then the president appoints the judge was trying to deal with that conflict of interest. But once we have this cleared by a court of law, it will have much more standing, it will have much more credibility and no dispute about what should happen.
Because he was basically referring to the independence of the judiciary system in South Africa. That is what he was basically saying yesterday. But let's just move along a little bit to Dr. Mmusi Maimane, an ANC MP. She continued to be very bold yesterday, of course, and very vocal, despite being seen as ill-disciplined, of course, by the ANC. What is your view on Dr. Khoza's boldness? And let's also talk a little bit about the death threats that she has received. I mean, we've seen the police minister, Fikile Mbalula, confirming that she will be provided with protection.
Well, maybe let's start with the last. Some people have felt that being under police guard does not guarantee them much safety because of the problems that surround the police and their proximity at times to particular politics within the ruling party in most instances. So probably Mmusi Maimane is also safer if she starts thinking about private security. This is the option that a number of people have actually opted for in a number of cases where people feel under threat. But let us deal with this idea of her boldness, which has been creeping up at least in the last few months. Definitely, Mmusi Maimane is now seen as a crusader of truth for parliamentarians that would love to vote with their conscience on the question of the president. It seems as if she has definitely broken ranks with the African National Congress insofar as she is unwilling to listen to a directive from Luthuli House that will go to caucus in parliament, and it undermines the oath of office that they would have taken as parliamentarians. Now, people see Mmusi Maimane as both a crusader of truth, but also they also see her as making serious mistakes in how she's pursuing this. But I think there's a reason why Mmusi Maimane is going the route that she's going. And the truth is that there's no longer a center within the ANC. If you say the ANC views Mmusi Maimane as ill-disciplined, we immediately asked which ANC, because the ANC has become so factionalized to the admission of the president in his closing remarks at the policy conference that they have been presiding over a highly disunited ANC without coherence at all, and it is about time that they bury the hatchet and probably move on to build an ANC without factions. So until such a time where Makosi Khoza is probably charged and she has been given opportunity to appeal, then we can probably start saying the ANC has found as having acted in an ill-disciplined manner. Right now, what we are seeing are supporting voices that are very factional. There are also disagreeing voices that are very factional. But I do think that something important is being done by Makosi Khoza to say, at what point do you push back as a representative of a party on a political agenda that aims to undermine the democratic institutions of South Africa? And of course, the National Assembly is one such key institution in this framework of our democratic institutions.
Well, we've also heard the former Finance Minister, Pravin Gordhan, of course, not mincing his words as well, saying that the president has got to go. But due to time, let's just quickly move to KwaZulu Natal and take a look at the Moerane Commission of Inquiry. And I know your senior from the University of KwaZulu Natal, Professor Zulu, yesterday shared some of his research into how politicians and some politicians see this as an opportunity, since the positions do not need qualifications to actually build their careers. Do you think political parties should sort of change this approach? And do you think that the commission will achieve what it is trying to achieve?
Well, I'm very skeptical about the success of the commission, and I'll tell you why. And I think, to an extent, I communicated these sentiments to the commission when I appeared before it earlier this year. The site of the problem is inside the political parties themselves, because what we are dealing with here is intra-party violence. It's different to when you are investigating inter-party violence between different parties, trying to identify the role players, trying to identify where they get their mandate and so on, and how they get to clash and why they clash. Right now, we are seeing comrades no longer in arms. We see comrades at each other's throats, comrades organizing assassinations for one another. And of course, this is because of a scramble of resources. The diagnostic report of the Secretary General of the ANC, Gwede Mantashe, to the policy conference put this quite aptly. He spoke about a sense of political bankruptcy that is creeping up within the ANC because people contest for positions of power with the view of gaining access to state resources and then dispensing patronage thereafter. So what the ANC is saying is that within its own ranks, its politics have evolved to a point that is undesirable, and their politics are becoming a threat, of course, to the democratic process within the ANC and outside the ANC. Because once people become vulnerable to the point where their lives are at stake, because of their political choices, whether within the party or outside, then you have a problem and an imminent threat to democracy. But the other side is that the corruption that is part and parcel of these political killings. Some whistleblowers we will know in the past, of course, have been killed. This is not a new phenomenon. We've had names of people like Mos Phakwe in the past. Mos Phakwe is one of the people who have come up with a dossier on corruption in a municipality that he was a councillor in. He presented that dossier to high up authorities in the ANC, including the then Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Minister Sicelo Shiteka, and some senior comrades within the top six, but they did not take action. So the site of a solution to this political violence is within the political party itself, and that is the ANC that must act on this, and probably not the commission itself.
All right, and we know that they are not confined to the KZN. Eastern Cape, the Raymond Mhlaba municipality, and the Twazama Jobe are some of the case studies as well. But we've run out of time. Thank you so much for talking to us here on Morning Live.
Only a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Well, there you have it. That's a political analyst, Lukhona Mnguni, from the University of KwaZulu Natal, talking to us about the three issues, the Moerane Commission, of course, and some of the meetings that were held in Lillies Leaf farm as well as here in Johannesburg yesterday.